This is a video that I have been waiting so long to make. It is with regards to Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge, and the Cambodian genocide. Now, as you know, anti-communists like to blame us for that whole situation when that wasn't us. Allow me to go into more detail. Kang Kuk Av, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong, was the jailer at the most dastardly Phnom Penh prison, Tuol Sleng, and personally oversaw the murder of hundreds of men and women in numbers that they say are uncountable. This is all part of the Khmer Rouge. Now, the Cambodian genocide lasted from about 1975 to 1979, and it alleged that it killed up to 2 million people. Personally, I'm skeptical of that big number because there isn't really any solid evidence to support that large number. Nonetheless, there still very clearly was a genocide. Now, after this started taking place, Cambodia was invaded by Vietnam, socialist Vietnam. And eventually, who shut down the genocide? It was a socialist country. On Christmas Day in 1978, Vietnam invaded Cambodia and put an end to the murderous Khmer Rouge regime. Now, do you remember the footage from the trial that went on about these people who carried out this genocide? Some of the very top leaders and the testimony that they gave at their trials. You probably don't, because the mainstream media didn't bother to report it. Because if they had, they would have known all the times the US, Britain, and the CIA were mentioned as allies of the Khmer Rouge. Now, it's interesting to note that Khmer Rouge often gets blamed on communism, even though they literally worked for the United States and the UK. More evidence of which I will be presenting in this video, and the fact that Pol Pot didn't call himself a Maoist until Mao was dead and was looking for political support. So try to keep that in mind when you're a reactionary and you start spewing hate in the comments. The fact that the Britain and the United States recognized the Khmer Rouge government long after they had already been overthrown by Vietnam is very telling. So once the crimes were already known, and the crimes were made public, and they had been forced out of power, the United States and the UK continued to recognize them as the legitimate government of Cambodia, and not the one installed by the Vietnamese army. You know, the one that committed all those crimes that caused the invasion to begin with, which even Noam Chomsky, in his book Understanding Power, actually acknowledges that is possibly the first and only time someone actually has done a humanitarian military intervention, and with good reason. Now, it was interesting that Thatcher and Reagan insisted Pol Pot's ambassador, because he wasn't actually the leader of the country anymore, in exile was secretly given millions of dollars by the U.S. government. Aid which continued for almost over a decade after he had been overthrown, and living in exile in Thailand, a U.S. ally. And also one of the countries, one regiment of Royal Thai soldiers participated in the Vietnam War. That's something a lot of people do tend to forget. So while they were living there, receiving millions of dollars from the US, particularly the CIA, and the UK, all of this was going on. But still, the fact that the government was, the whole Khmer Rouge, backed by the United States and the UK, received CIA money, somehow it's still our fault. Now, the point of this video was to point out how one of the big, architects, Kang Kuk Av, who was the head of a particular prison, has finally died, and he was in his... and he was in the 90s. But I think there's even a more important story here, is for us to stop taking the blame for what the United States and the UK actually did, and finally shut these people up once and for all. Now, Jane's Defense Weekly and the Daily Telegraph revealed as late as 1989 that more than a decade after the world knew about the killing fields, Britain's SAS was still helping to train Pol Pot's jungle army in exile. That's right, as the genocide was going on and the whole world knew about it, the Special Air Service was still training Pol Pot's forces. Think about that. Remember that. This whole almost unbelievable episode, one of the worst actual real crimes against humanity, went basically ignored. Because all of these forces were working for the US and the UK. They were imperialist puppets. And we to this day still get the blame for what they did. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.